Welcome to the Real Estate Niche Show, a show that focuses on top real estate professionals who specialize in different niches of real estate. My name is Ben Kogut. Join me as we dive deep into the professional and personal lives of the experts of the real estate industry. Welcome to the Real Estate Niche Show. I'm your host, Ben Kogut, and today I have a very interesting guest, Anthony Vicino. He's a best-selling author, a real estate investor, and a serial entrepreneur committed to helping people maximize their return on life. Love that. He's a co-founding partner of Invictus Capital, which is a multifamily acquisitions firm based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with $30 million assets under management, that provides busy working professionals with the opportunity to invest better. He's also the host of the Multifamily Investing Made Simple podcast and author of Passive Investing Made Simple. Anthony firmly believes investing shouldn't be complicated, scary, or overwhelming. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the Real Estate Niche Show. Did I miss anything in your bio?
I mean, you left out all the parts that I would prefer to keep in the dark, like all the failures. You hit all the highlights, and that makes for a good bio.
You don't want to? Would you like to start us off with one of the failures?
I think, we probably should, because I think it's so easy to look, and just like with the bio, it seems like it's all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to investing in businesses, but the failures are far, far more prevalent. So. For me, I don't know if that's like a legit question, but yeah, one of my biggest failures, actually, we'll just kick it right in, is when I first tried to get into real estate. And this was a long time ago, 8 or 9 years. Maybe it's for some people, that's not super long, but on that very first deal, I was going to partner with my best friend on a quad. And we got to literally the night before closing. And I realized that we had made a grave mistake, which was, we both had the same strengths and exactly the same weaknesses. We're both trying to pick up the same balls, and we're ignoring all the same balls. And the conflict was that we hadn't set clear expectations and roles and accountabilities. And so there was all this tension leading up to closing, and communication was just falling apart. And it was my best friend. And I had to make this choice of okay, is this deal worth doing at the sake of our relationship? Or would it be better just to walk away, take the hit on earnest money, and just, say, hey, we tried and this was just not a good fit. So that's what I did. And it did damage to the relationship, but in the long term, it was the right play, because things that start hard end hard. And one of the things I've learned is that all the businesses I've been a part of that succeed have been off the back of a really strong partnership. And all the businesses, and I've had a bunch that failed, have always been because I had a bad partnership. So that's one of my failures just right off the bat.
Got it. Yeah. People and relationships are everything. And so what advice do you give other people to, when you're starting to talk about potentially starting a business, or in this case, commercial real estate investments? What is it that you like to share with people?
I think it's about self-awareness and understanding, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, and being really brutally honest about that, because it does you no good to lie to yourself and sugarcoat things and say, well, I'm pretty good at this, and I guess I'm not that bad at that thing, when in reality, you're you suck at that thing. And you should just be honest about that, because what you're looking for in a partner isn't somebody who has all the same strengths and weaknesses. You're looking for the complement, the person who is terrible at the things that you're great at and who is great at the things that you're terrible at. And you find that partnership and you're going to soar. That only comes with self-awareness, to understand what is it that you're actually looking for in a partner. And so that's step one. But right behind that is, once you've audited your skills, is realizing that the 3 most important investments that you can make is, number 1, in yourself. Number 2 is in your network. And number 3 is in your community. And so as you audit your strengths and your weaknesses, you need to do everything in your power to start leveling up your skills, because the best investment you make is in yourself. It pays infinite returns for the rest of your life. So it's never a waste of time. And if you want to find that magical unicorn partner who's going to take you to the moon, it starts by becoming the partner worth having, right? You can't go and attract a rock star partner if you yourself are not a rock star partner. So you have to start building those skills. And then the universe has a way of, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. It's the same with partners. When the partner is ready, the partner appears.
Love it. Those are some gold nugget quotes right there. Maybe share with us a little bit about, how do you invest in yourself?
So that's a good question. I'm all about reading. That's a huge way that I learn. And everybody learns differently. Some people are more kinesthetic. Some people want to watch and some people listen. I'm a huge reader, so I read a lot of books. But I'm also, I try to look at what are the skills that are holding me back from getting to where I want to go and focusing on how do I surround myself with the people who know how to do that thing that they can accelerate my learning. Like there's no need to go and reinvent the wheel or try and figure it out on my own. If I want to get better at finance and Excel and spreadsheets, I'm going to go find the guy who's like a wizard at that thing, sit him down for 10 hours and be like, you're going to teach me this thing until I get it. Right? Like that's going to be way better than just going to YouTube and saying like, okay, Excel, how do I get good at that? Or if you want to become a better public speaker, go get a coach, go get somebody who's a really good public speaker and say, teach me, what am I doing poorly? Because no matter what level you're at, you never see like a gold medal Olympic caliber athlete that doesn't have a coach, right? Like Tiger Woods has a swing coach. That guy knows how to swing a golf club, and yet he still has a swing coach. And the reason is because that coach can see things that he can't see. And so that's how I learn. I like to read. I like to try and honestly assess where I'm at and then figure out who are those people that can come in and supplement.
One of the mottos that I live by is that it's better to copy genius than create mediocrity. And
that's a good one.
Falls right in line with what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned investing in the community. How do you invest in the community?
Well, that's one of the things that's so cool about real estate, right? Like one of my other businesses we were talking about before we went live, it's a manufacturing company. And what's interesting about that one is it's focused within the submarket of rock climbing. And for rock climbers, there's not a lot of like awesome career opportunities that would allow them to go and climb and be in the outdoors and then also have like a secure career path in like a job, right? And so that's what we set out to create there was like, how can we create a job for engineers and for people who just want to work with their hands all day or marketing, but within the outdoor industry so that they can still go and live their life. And so that was what we built that business around was like, how do we positively impact 1,000 rock climbers through meaningful career opportunities? Real estate's even cooler because for us, like we're vertically integrated. So that means we do the property management in-house. We're handling residents and leasing and all their repairs and maintenance complaints and all the issues. And that allows us to serve that community. And when you serve like that community, they inevitably take care of the building, which then takes care of the investment, which takes care of our investors. And so like, that's how we view that whole string is that you start at the bottom, you take care of the families that are living in that property. And that has a trickle out effect to the rest of the community because you take care of your property and suddenly, people are proud to live there. Now they're proud to be in that neighborhood. And my whole perspective on life is that if you want to change the world, you first have to change yourself. And then that has that trickle out effect because the people around you, your friends and family, they start to see how you've grown and you're changing and you're getting better. You're trying to get better. And then that pursuit of better, they get the silent permission to also strive for that. And now they're striving and you're striving. And then the people around them see that and that becomes a community. And the next thing that's a town and then a city and then a state, right? And it just keeps expanding outward. So if you want to change the world, start at the smallest place that you can where you're at.
Love that, Anthony. Yeah, that reminds me of another quote. Be the change that you want to see in the world.
That's such a good one.
It's so great. And you just elaborated on that. And so let's take another step back. You touched on what you do. Normally, when I interview somebody, we dive right into that. So let's kind of reverse our way back into that. Share with everybody about what you specialize in. What's your superpower niche?
Yeah, so our focus is multifamily assets, specifically in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the first ring suburbs. So that's the Twin Cities. I always say Twin Cities, and then people are like, that aren't from Minnesota, like, wait, where is that again? That's why we have the Minnesota Twins, our baseball team. So we focus exclusively up here and we're vertically integrated, like I mentioned before. But then on the other side of that is that we do a lot of deals with our own money and we do joint ventures, but we also syndicate. And so we work a lot with passive investors. And what makes us maybe more unique than most in this space is that we do have vertical integration on the property management, but on the capital raising side, we don't outsource that. Like we only bring in the capital that we ourselves can bring in. And so it confines how quickly we can grow. But at the end of the day, we have this thesis, and this is pretty much stolen straight from Gary Vee. So I'm not going to take credit for this, but it's that whoever's closest to the consumer wins. right? And for us, our consumers are our investors and our residents. And so we want to be as close to those two as possible with nobody else in the middle.
Love that. So let's, I'm a capital raiser myself, so that's a near and dear topic to me. What have been the lessons learned for y'all on your capital raising and investor relations journey?
So you have to understand that you and I and everybody is probably listening to this, or many people are listening to this, they're obsessed with real estate. This is why they're listening to a real estate podcast. But the majority of people that you're going to encounter as a prospective investor are not losing sleep over real estate every night. They're not dreaming about what's going to happen in the markets. They know that real estate is a powerful investment vehicle and they want to participate, but they don't want to spend hours and days and weeks and months out of their life dedicated to learning everything about it and like immersing themselves in this thing. And so you have to understand that for most people, they want to participate, but they're scared, they're overwhelmed because it can feel very complicated. So your goal is to bring it down to their level without making it this master's thesis that they have to go and get. Because if that's what is required, they're not going to do it. Right. And on the other side of that, the confused mind says no. So we have to make this accessible and show them that this is possible for them to fit in. We have to address their fears and their concerns, because I think once you start drinking from the real estate Kool-Aid, it's really easy just to forget that there are risks, there are concerns, because we can start to just explain those away because we understand it really well. But most people coming in, that's the first thing that they're leading with is fear and concern. And like rule number one of investing is don't lose money. And rule number two is don't forget rule number one. Thank you, Warren Buffett. But it's true. Like if we can meet investors where they are and not where we want them to be, or where we wish they were, then we're going to do far better in serving them. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to serve them an opportunity. We're not trying to sell them on a thing. We're trying to be the solution to their problem. But we can only do that if we really understand what is the problem that they perceive themselves having.
Love all that. Completely agree. I'd like to dive a little bit deeper and try to understand how you go about making it simple for people to digest it.
So part of that is reaching people and understanding how they learn, right? So, and I talked about this earlier, I like to read, but a lot of people, they like to watch videos and some people like to listen to podcasts. And so this is about, for us, one, being where people are. So we have a podcast, Multifamily Investing Made Simple. We wrote a book called Passive Investing Made Simple. We have a YouTube channel, and it's all about meeting people where they are. And at every corner, trying to make things as simple as possible and realize from our own perspective, things seem very simple because we have time and experience on our hands. But if we really want to connect with somebody who's just walking into this for the very first time, we have to put ourselves in their shoes and say, they have no context for what a cap rate is. And so to even explain that concept, we're going to have to walk that back in so many different layers to get them where they are so that they can understand the concept. And so that's what we do is like, we're never trying to sell real estate or investing in real estate. We're always leading with education, because once you get it, once that light bulb finally goes off, it's done. People go, I get it. This is awesome. I love this. Let's go. And then you can't hold them back. And so you just got to get people to that layer, that level of like, I'm ready to go. And so by the time you get on like investor calls with people, for us these days, those initial calls are just so easy because people already have so much experience. They've listened to so much of our content or consumed our book that they come in, they're like, I'm ready to go. I know you as an individual, because that's the other piece is if you want to be a successful capital raiser, then you got to have a great product, but you also have to somehow overcome that trust barrier that people have, which is like, why do I trust you and your company? Like, why are you the right person for this? Because the deal, it doesn't even matter, right? Like numbers don't lie, but I can make them say whatever I want them to say. So people aren't really looking at the deal. They're looking at you as the operator. So you have to figure out, how do I get people to know, like, and trust me and believe that I have their best interest in mind?
Yeah, love all that. Totally agree with it. And the only thing that I might add, Anthony, is that the mentality that I take when I'm, presenting or sharing with investors is a mentality of indifference. indifferent as to whether or not they actually make that investment or not. And that way, there's really no pressure. I don't like people that are really like pushy salesman kind of guys. And so I'll echo what you're saying, the importance of education and building relationships and putting out all that content that you guys are doing is really fantastic. So bravo for you on that journey. And so let's take that a step further and kind of flip that around and talk about finding deals. I mean, we're at the end of 2021 here, and it's a hot market. And so I'm curious what strategies you guys have put in place to, identify and ultimately close on assets.
It's hard, real estate, though, it is a relationship business. And for us, the majority of our deals come from very close relationships with, I would say, two groups of individuals. One is brokers who specialize more in pocket listings than they do big, public listings. So they're the type of guys who will go get the deals and then they're going to show it to two people. They have their stable of buyers and they're going to go to those two groups. And if they pass on it, then they'll go public with it. So we do a good amount of deals with those type of brokers. But the majority of our deals come from this old guard of owners, people who've been operating in the Twin Cities for the last 30, 40 years. Legitimately, I find, and this is probably true in every market, I haven't done an analysis on this, but if we follow the 80-20 rule and we look at industries as a whole, you always see that like the two top companies in an industry dominate like 80% of, the market share. Whereas like number 3 through 10, they do, the rest of the percentage, right? And I find that in any market, there's probably like 15 guys and gals who do the majority of deals. They own the majority of assets in that market. And if you can go and become best friends with those people and create, a substantial relationship where they know, like, and trust you, they believe that you will do what you say and close on the deals when you say you will, then those people, as they start reaching retirement age, as they start looking to recycle through their properties, maybe move on to triple net lease or move on to whatever else, then you're the first person that they call. And for us, we happened into this by accident. Many years ago, we did a deal with a guy who we didn't realize at the time was a really big deal in the Twin Cities. He had 3,000 units, had been operating and for many, many decades and knew all the players. And we happened to do this deal and it was rough at one point. But we impressed this guy with the fact that we stuck with it and we found the solution and got the deal done and didn't have to retrade or renegotiate. We didn't change what we said we would do. Like, we followed through. And at the end of the day, for these old school people, they're not always concerned about getting top dollar. They're concerned with like honor and doing what you say and making it easy and, following through. And so we started to create a relationship with this guy based off of that thesis. Next thing we know, he's recommending us to his other buddies who also own thousands of units. And they're like, hey, if you're going to sell, you should talk to these guys. And what's really interesting is that like this older generation, they're looking for this new young generation that they can start to sell to, that they believe like are going to make for easy transactions, that they're going to take care of their assets. They're going to like love their properties as much as they did. And so we just kind of found ourselves by happenstance inserted into this niche with these old school people who've been selling to us now for many, many years. But once we became like cognizant that is what was happening, we really leaned into it. And we said, okay, how do we really define our brand and our the narrative in this marketplace with these sellers so that they all come to us? And that's been something that's been very intentional. And as a result, we've been well rewarded and getting deals before anybody else ever even sees them. In a lot of cases, it's not even that they're looking to sell, but we'll sit down, we'll look at their entire portfolio and say, what would work for us? What would work for them on their timeline of, when is the loan coming due that they want to exit? We'll come up with a price and then we'll lay out that track record of like, okay, in the next 12 months, you have these 3 deals. This is when we're taking them down and it's going to take them down at this price, assuming that the NOI and that the operating accounts all look as you say they will, right? Like, we don't want anything that changes in the 11th hour. But so far, that's been just an incredible strategy. And I don't know how to turn that into something that others can go and actively deploy. But what I would say is be really conscious and cognizant of every relationship that you enter into, because you never know what the downstream effects of that are going to be. So be somebody who's like full of integrity and does what they say and keeps their word, because the long-term ramifications of that are Always positive.
Nice. Yep. Tried and true. Do what you say you're going to do. And yeah, I love that. You guys you identified who you thought were the top players in the market, and you have sought out relationships with them. And I guess I'm assuming, I'm sort of reading between the lines here. Are you just personally trying to like take people out to lunch and dinner, just build genuine relationships and set your intentions up front and say, hey, like this is what we're trying to do, all that kind of stuff. It's great.
Yeah. So we have internally what we call the wine and dine list. And the wine and dine list is every single relationship and contact that is meaningful to us that we need to foster and nurture and make an effort to stay in front of. And on this list, there's probably 50 or 60 different people, and they're not all equally important. Like some brokers, some lenders, some sellers, some vendors, and everybody is going to require a different type of touch. But our goal is that in every quarter, we're touching all of those people in the way that they need to. So if that's a seller that we really want to transact with, one of the really interesting things about these older guys, like let's think about like your grandpa. What does your grandpa love more than anything else? Grandpa loves having a captive audience to tell his stories to. They freaking love this. So if you can get them together and be like, hey, we want to take you out to dinner and learn and pick your brain because you have like 40 years of stories to tell. Oh my God, they're going to tell you some things that you never would have heard otherwise. You're going to learn a lot. Two, you're going to build so much rapport because they're like, oh my God, I love these guys. Like I'm having a lot of fun. And so we're not necessarily going into these meetings and saying, hey, we're looking to do a transaction. Sometimes we are clear about what it is that we need and what we're looking for. But mostly this wine and dine list is about maintaining relationships and continuing to intentionally move them forward.
Got it. And so I want to push down a little bit further on that. Aside from taking people out to dinner and doing all those one-on-one things, you mentioned that every quarter you're touching people. What other ways are you going about making that happen?
So that could be as simple as it could be a text. It could be a phone call. It could be a letter. It could be, hey, we have these tickets to this thing. We know that you love the Vikings. So go check out the game. You can touch people in all sorts of different ways. And it's not always the same, right? Like you have to understand like what is this person going to respond to? A lot of brokers, they're very busy. They're very, very busy. They might not be down to go to dinner. They might be okay getting a coffee, but generally like they're so busy, they don't care to necessarily go really, really deep with a particular buyer or seller. Like, so that might be a relationship where just a quick phone call or a quick text or, a quick email can do. Whereas with a seller, that could be a bigger thing. Like, hey, I know that you've mentioned in the past that you're really into soccer. We're going to the soccer game where we got some tickets. You want to come with us? Like, or we're going to this event, this opera, whatever. Like, we've never gone to opera, but like you could use that as an example, right? Like, so it's
take these opera tickets off my hands.
Exactly. And this is something that we try to do with our investors is we touch our investors a lot. And I said that sounds like really weird, but like we're constantly looking for how can we stay in front of them in a way that's not just saying, hey, we're looking for a referral, or hey, we got another deal. Would you like to give us some money? So like thinking about what kind of gifts or moments of intention would they respond well to? And that's going to be different for everybody, right? Like some people, it's maybe here's a candle. For some people, it's like, hey, we know that you like this type of book. You're a history buff, and we came across this really cool history book. Like we thought you'd respond well to it. So it's the art of like giving gifts and staying in front of people. You can't systematize it without losing all the heart and the intention, and then it becomes like, oh, cool. I have no use for this thing. Thank you. But you just would have been better off not sending me that. Like, so you don't want to just send like a Swiss Army knife to somebody who's like, I have no need for a Swiss Army knife. Like this is just, you just wanted to put your branding thing in front of me. So you have to be intentional.
I love that. The art of gift giving is definitely an art. So bravo to you. I have not mastered that. We have attempted to send out Yeti cups to our investors with their names on it and stuff like that. It's always been a positive response, but beyond that, I haven't quite figured out how to play that game yet.
It's hard. And I would say that you always get another at bat. So if you screw it up, that's okay. Try again. And one of the things about the Yeti cups with like one of the best gifts that you can give. And I think we as operators generally use every opportunity to brand, and gift giving is not always that. It can be, but it's not always, right? Like If you send, one of the coolest gifts I got was a Yeti cup with our branding on it from a guy. I was like, that's really cool. Like, he didn't put his logo on it. He put our logo. I was like, that's one, how did he get our logo and do that? Because like, that's not simple on its own. So that hit me different. Right. And so if you send a Yeti cup with their name on it, they're like, oh, cool. This isn't just, they have a closet full of Yeti cups with their logo on it. Like, somebody sat down and wrote my name on this. Like, that's really cool.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's hard enough just to get a cup engraved, but then to have that, that's beautiful.
It's a next level.
Nice.
Right? Yeah,
that's next level. That's awesome. So we only have a few more minutes here, and so one of the questions, we're going to kind of pivot a little bit in the conversation. One of the questions that I'd love to ask people is, how do you define the word success?
Man, that's a great question. I have a podcast that I do with Austin Linney called The Brain Dump. And it's called The Psychology of Success, where we just try to unpack that term. And it's funny, we've done like 60 episodes, and I don't really have a definition still after all those episodes of what success means, because it's different for everybody, right? Like, I think the main thing, and it doesn't matter how I define it, right? Because how you're going to define it for yourself is completely different. And that's what really matters. The problem that most people find themselves in is that they've never really stopped to define success for themselves. They don't realize that it's a game that they get to chalk the field and write the rule books for. They think they have to play by the American dream or their parents' dream or the whatever dream. And so they're going out onto the soccer field and they're like, well, this is the game I have to play. And it's like, no, you could make this into whatever you want. You could start playing Quidditch. You could do that. Like, it's your game. And so if you want to define it by money, cool. If you want to define it by relationships, cool. If you want to define it by time freedom, cool. If you want to define it by, that next promotion, cool. All that really matters is that you define it for yourself, because until you do that, until you define what winning and losing really looks like, you're stuck in this middle place of never really knowing, like, am I moving forward or am I moving back? Did I win? Did I succeed today? I don't know. And if you don't have like that code of ethics or the value or the scoreboard by which you can measure these things, then you don't really know. If you're defining your success as like, I want strong, meaningful, healthy relationships, I want to be surrounded by love. Okay, well, what's that mean? Like, and at the end of the day, can you look back on your scoreboard and say, I did that, I achieved that, I moved that ball forward? So that's a long, ranty answer. All to say, I don't know what success is, and it's a constantly shifting thing. And I think you always need to be reevaluating it, because what used to be success last year might not be anymore. And that's okay. Like, we're constantly growing and evolving.
Well, you encouraged me to throw a curveball at you, and instead of a curveball, I'm going to press.
Yeah.
And you said a lot of wonderful words, but I want to know, what is your definition of success? And, however you like, what are you looking at? Because you said it's whatever you think, So I'm going to flip that script back out on you.
Okay. So take this with a grain of salt and don't turn this into like your own vision of success.
Cool.
That's my only request. Okay. So if you're familiar with Maslow, he has this concept of like the hierarchy of needs, where you have to have like your physical needs met before you can move on to like being self-actualized, right? Well, he had another concept, which I found really, really impactful at a certain point in my life, which was the +1 theory of greatness. And he didn't actually call it that. I just named it for him. So imagine that you're standing on a road, and in front of you, there's all these road signs at equal distance that say +1, +1, +1, +1. And behind you, if you were to turn around, they all say -1, -1, -1. Now, every moment, every decision that you make is either moving you forward 1, or it's moving you backwards 1. It's either moving you forward towards your greatness, or it's moving you away from your greatness. And the interesting thing is that when you make a decision that moves you backwards, you're not just going back 1, but you're also denying yourself the opportunity of moving forward 1. And so we're not perfect. We're just humans. And this means that our ideal, perfect, greatest self is so far ahead of us that we will never catch them. It's impossible. They're too far gone, and they're never going to make a bad decision. And that can be demoralizing for a lot of people. But for me, what it means is that in any moment, any decision is an opportunity to move forward, or it's an opportunity to move backwards. And for me, success means chasing my capacity. It means becoming the best that I can be given where I am now, right? And that means the past doesn't matter, right? Like it's left me where I am on that road. I can't change that, but all I can change is this next moment and chasing that capacity, chasing that greatness. And so success for me means, am I moving forward each day? It doesn't have to be a lot. It could just be, did I move forward +1? That's enough.
Love it, love it, love it. There's a Jewish motto called Tikkun Olam, which basically means healing the world, which is another way of saying what you're saying, which is making the world a better place, and small ways, big ways, and everything in between. And so I love that. That's a beautiful way to define success. And clearly with, all the books and the podcasts and the YouTube, and shout out to Austin Linney and the syndications and building relationships and staying healthy and investing in yourself and the community. It's really, really impressive, Anthony, what you've created. And I really appreciate you sharing that wisdom with me and our audience here. And so on that note, maybe would you mind sharing with people how they might be able to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So you can find me at anthonyvicino.com if you want to learn more about, what I do with entrepreneurs and just spreading the love there to try and help people build better businesses and better lives so that they can maximize their return on life. If you want to learn more about what we do on the real estate side, then go to invictusmultifamily.com. And, we did publish this book back in August. It hit #1 on Amazon, which is really rad. If you're interested in grabbing a copy, just shoot me an email. I'll shoot you a free copy. But just tell me that you came from this podcast. That's the real estate niche, though. That's going to be how I know that Ben deserves his signed Yeti cup.
Nice. High five on that. Well, on that note, thanks everybody for listening. It would be really, really appreciative if you could subscribe, share this, provide feedback. As you know, I'm new to the podcasting world, but really appreciate all the words of encouragement and everything in between. So on that note, thanks again, Anthony, for being here. And I hope everybody has a wonderful, powerful day.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Real Estate Niche Show. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me or the show, you can follow me on Instagram at Ben Kogut and at The Real Estate Niche Show. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.